several weeks of violence. We just had 2 people killed in a homeless encampment. Even the police chief came out and said the violence is way out of control right now. This horrible economic news about nobody wants to visit. What do you think for most of the morning? The top story was at seattletimes.com. You wouldn't even be able to guess it, so let me tell you. Headline, Mysterious Mosaic Rallies a Seattle Community. Oh yes, the top story all morning during all of these crises in the city of Seattle for the newspaper of record was a story about a mosaic put up on Capitol Hill featuring a picture of a rat that said Hot Rat Summer and how members of the trans community are rallying around it. Why would the Seattle Times have that be the top story on their website at a time of such uncertainty for the city they're supposed to serve? Well, because the Seattle Times is absolute trash. Yes, we've just been on a roll this week, so let's keep going. Because this is important. I blame the media more than I blame the politicians. I don't know how many times I have to say that. The media is more to blame for the people dying in filth and squalor on the streets than the mayor of Seattle is. The media is more to blame for people not wanting to come here than the mayor of Seattle is. Because they're supposed to hold them accountable, and that accountability changes behavior. But instead, what are they reporting on? Top story. Hot Rat Summer. A mysterious Cal Anderson mosaic rallies Seattle's trans community. This is some hard-hitting stuff. Interesting that it was written by Catalina Gayton, who's the Seattle Times breaking news reporter. Let's read some of this. I don't know what's breaking news about this. It took Seattle artist Aaron Friedman and one friend some scraper tools, a jug of stripping gel, and about 4 hours under the cover of a dark March night to liberate the giant glittering rat at the heart of Cal Anderson Park. Friedman felt he was unveiling something special as he scraped gray paint off the mosaic, from its narrow black tiles spelling the word Hot Rat Summer to its blue, white, and pink stripes of the transgender pride flag. But Friedman didn't know that within weeks, the colorful mosaic that had laid mostly dormant for almost a year in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood would become a symbol of resilience for the city's transgender community, inspiring a fervent, almost religious devotion from those who found a patron saint in the Guerrilla Artworks star, a halo-adorned rodent dubbed Saint Rat. So this Seattle Times story, which if it was buried in the bowels of the Seattle Times, I would really not have a problem with, but given all the serious issues facing the city right now, for it to be front and center, I think requires a deeper dive into the journalistic prowess in uncovering this story. So bottom line is, a couple years ago, someone went out and at Cal Anderson Park, they illegally, without permission, made some mural of a rat with a halo on it, and it says, Hot Rat Summer, a play off the Hot Girl Summer that, is apparently like something that I don't know much about, but I know the Kamala Harris campaign talked about it a lot. And then the city comes out and they paint over it gray because nobody told them that they could make a mural or a mosaic of a Hot Rat Summer there. So now you've got the trans community, because there's stripes that have the trans pride flag colors that are saying that this piece of art is like their patron saint. And they are livid with the city covering it up. And so you have this really small issue in the grand scheme of all these things happening in the city of Seattle. And not only is the Seattle Times doing a story on it, but because the Seattle Times is doing a story on it, you have Seattle City Council members, not one but two, dedicating a bunch of their time to trying to protect the patron saint Hot Rat. It says, Council members Joy Hollingsworth and Alexis Mercedes Rink have supported protecting the artwork, including getting Seattle Public Utilities and Parks Department workers to stop painting over it until they find a permanent solution. They are also brainstorming ways the city can better support guerrilla artists, including creating designated public community walls where people could place their work without getting approval from the city in advance, and potentially changing the city's antiquated definition of graffiti. In fact, Joy Hollingsworth cared about this rat so much, she wanted to find the original artist to pay the artist for their work. Whether that would be with personal funds or city funds, I'm not sure. And then when she found out that city workers had covered the mosaic again, she and council member Mercedes Rink went to Cal Anderson Park that same day to clean off the paint themselves. So when you've got a symbol apparently of the trans community in a piece of illegal art at a city park, not only will the Seattle Times write like a 7 million word story about it and put it on the front page of seattletimes.com at a time of crisis for the city, but not one, but two council members will go to that park and they'll spend their time the same day, they'll respond the same day, scraping off a paint that their own city agency just put over it. Man, if only we could get that kind of response to graffiti elsewhere in the city. If only we could get that same kind of response to people who are overdosing and dying in business alcoves. If only multiple council members would spring into action and go save their lives and get them help. But no, that has nothing to do with radical gender ideology and pandering to their base. And of course, this also is about Trump somehow, mixing him all in. So there's this transgender person who's out there every day caring for the Patron Saint rat. And they told the Seattle Times that the layer of fresh paint felt like a personal blow. By covering up the mosaic, the city seemed to prioritize rule following over protecting a landmark cherished by constituents, especially transgender people who are facing increasing hostility under the current presidential administration. This transgender person said, "We just feel like we're part of a rejection by society because the government isn't listening to us. It's not bringing anybody to the table, and that's the issue. A lot of people see the rat as an animal rejected by society, this plague we need to get rid of. And that's the way a lot of people see trans people. We have this construct of what we think the rat is, a dirty, horrible creature we need to eradicate. But it's just another animal on the planet that's just as important as anything else." Imagine if the Seattle Times wrote something so profound about the people suffering in filth and squalor and addiction and mental crisis all over the streets of the city they're supposed to serve. Imagine if the Seattle Times wrote in-depth articles waxing poetic about the need to save an actual human, the way they're writing about the need to save a mosaic featuring a rat with a halo on it. So this is all part of the problem. We have pressing crises, things that aren't getting any better despite spending billions and billions of dollars on them. City leaders want you to look the other way. They want you to blame Donald Trump. They want you to blame everything else except what you actually see with your own eyes. And then you have newspapers and news agencies like the Seattle Times that will spend their journalistic efforts focusing on stories like this, on saving a rat mosaic instead of saving human beings on the street, and in the process, saving a once great city. And why do they do that? Why do they do that, Nicole? Well, because the Seattle Times is trash.